I know, yeah, everybody wants you to accept me.
Chairman Anderson, we're live on YouTube.
All right, this is the Senate Appropriations Committee. We'll call it to order. And the first order of business is the roll call, please.
Senator Anderson.
I'm here.
Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Nethercott. Here. Senator Salzar.
Excused.
And Chairman Kinski.
Excused.
Okay.
So we have a quorum, and the first bill to come before this group is House Bill 60. Do we have anybody that would like to talk on House Bill 60?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a whole lot to say other than we worked this bill through the interim.
Name, please. Name, please.
Sorry, yes, apologize. Barry Crago, House District 40, here on behalf of the House Ag Committee. And we worked this bill through the interim. We made substantial changes to it on the House side to address several of the concerns, I think, not only of sportsmen, but also of some of our colleagues in the ag community. And so we made a bunch of changes to the bill. It came down the hall to you. Your TRW committee added an appropriation, changed some other language within there. But for purposes of your discussion today, the main thing is the appropriation. When it left the House, it had no appropriation in it. That was not part of our interim discussion, including an appropriation. And so I'm just here to answer any questions you may have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Representative. I just have, I'll put it out there on the table. So, I'm the one on TRW that put the appropriation in. And so Mike, and you all weren't there. I didn't hear any discussion. So now I can ask the question. Did you all discuss about how much money this was going to cost, the fiscal note on here, and how this money was going to, where that money was going to come from and how that was going to play out? Did you have any discussions on that?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Senator Grew, during the interim, that discussion was not had. There was some discussion in committee on our side, on the House side. As you mentioned, I did not attend. I was gone. And so I apologize for that. I would have liked to have been there to have that conversation with you, and so I apologize for that. But we did not talk about that. And I think we don't really know. I mean, I think the fiscal note's a guess. And one reason I point this out, and I think it's important to note, is we added a very important word on our end. So right now, there is damage language in the statute. We added the word reasonable to existing law, which we believed, and in consultation with our good friends at the department that manages our game and fish, that would give them a lot more flexibility in determining who qualifies for these payments and who doesn't. So I'm not sure anybody knows who actually is going to ask for this payment. It most likely is going to be those folks who have very large amounts of elk on their private land and are suffering extraordinary damages that are unable to be proved any other way. And so I think we whittled down the amount of people that are actually going to apply for this by inserting one word. And so I don't know if anybody knows, including our good friends at the department, what this is actually going to cost. I know there's a fiscal note attached. I don't know how we came up with that. And I don't know, based on who, our intent was to increase the amount of people that would apply. I'm not sure we did that as the bill came out of the House. But what I think we did do is the people who do apply are going to be fairly compensated, which may end up costing the state more money. I'm not arguing that, but I don't think it's as many people as we originally thought are going to apply.
Thank you. And the Game and Fish makes a decision on who gets compensated, just like they do on other issues like that.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. So the other amendment that was made in your TRW committee was regarding a presumption. And so we had created a presumption within the language of the bill of what would qualify for a damage payment under this. That language was modified, and so I haven't really spent any time thinking about how that will change what happens. But in the end, yes, our Game and Fish Department gets to determine whether you qualify for this payment or not, and you are going to have to allow reasonable hunting access on your property to make that happen.
Other questions for Representative Craig? Other questions? Other questions? Hearing none, I think there's other people that want to testify also. One fella has 45 minutes of, he might be last.
Mr. Chairman, Alan Slagle, House District 2, also serve on House Ag Committee.
Closer to your mic.
Pull your mic a little closer.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
One comment I would make, if you look at the fiscal note that was originally on the bill, it does talk about how the department came up with their fiscal note. They assumed 74,425 total private land animal unit months, and then used the calculations. And so, and the figures actually were figured from that assumption. The other thing I would like to say is, with discussions with the department that manages our game, they didn't feel that they needed additional money brought in from the general fund. I mean, they thought that their budget could cover it. And so that's why there wasn't any appropriation put on the bill originally. So, and with that, I will stand for any other questions.
So the 1,675,000 was coming out of their budget. They were covering that if that occurred.
Right, that is correct.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Slagle? Any other questions? Any other questions? No? No questions?
Mr. Chairman, Jim McGaggan with the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association. We were kind of the impetus in bringing this issue before the Joint Ag Committee earlier. And at no point in this did we ask for any funding other than funding from the Game and Fish Commission. With regard to the budget note, I know it's really a guessing game. How many landowners would qualify for this is one thing. How many will apply for it? There are a number of considerations. One is that it requires that you grant reasonable access to hunters on your land. That's going to be something that will be negotiated with the commission, and from discussions, I know that some landowners I've had a landowner tell me, I'd rather have the elk than have too many hunters on my land. So those are all going to be factors that will be considered. And so I think that's a high-end number at this point. And I would say at this point, I certainly would defer to your decision if you want to put some money in there, but we would be very comfortable with leaving it with the Game and Fish. And based on the first year's experience, if we need to come back next year and ask the legislature to appropriate some dollars, or perhaps authorize the expenditure from dollars from the Wildlife Trust Fund, which would be another option, because this is about providing habitat for our wildlife, those would be options that would be open. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll reserve the other 44 minutes that I mentioned to you, and be happy to take any questions.
Okay, we got a question here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. McGagna, for being here. And thank you for your testimony. But you brought up something there at the end, because actually I have had a number of calls over the weekend from ranchers and folks around the state. And two of them mentioned to me that the Wildlife Trust Fund. And two ranchers told me that they came down and testified in 2012 or whatever, when that trust fund was put into place. And they both told me the same thing. They said they came down because they thought, they anticipated this, the bill, what this bill contemplates. And they had been told that the money would come from the Wildlife Trust Fund. And that was kind of, they were wondering, what about that? And that's the first time I'd ever heard it. And you just mentioned it just a few seconds ago. So I was wondering, since you've got a lot of institutional knowledge around here, was that really contemplated when that was set up?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Trudeau, we were very involved in the creation of the Wildlife Trust Fund, and I don't recall a discussion. I mean, it was about providing good habitat for our wildlife was certainly a critical part of it. In some people's minds, and I said, well, making sure that private lands will accommodate them is a part of that, and I would tend to agree with that, but I do not recall any discussions that led me to anticipate at that point that this was intended to be a program developed under that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Mr. Magagna? Questions? Salazar doesn't have any questions.
I have no questions.
No question. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Magagna. Thank you for staying with us. Any other comments? Any other public comments? Any Zoom comments? None. All right. We'll close public comment and
Move the bill.
committee, what's your, moving to seconded. All right. Any discussion? Any discussion? Yes, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to offer.
10 million.
Double down. No, and I think I'm in a very good position to do this since I'm the one that put it in to remove the $5 million ask from the general fund into this bill. So amend the 5 million out.
Second?
Moved and seconded to amend the 5 million out. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? No discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. I think that's just a voice vote, isn't it?
Yep.
Just a, all right, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Question on the bill.
5 million is out. Question on the bill. I wasn't ready yet. I have lots more things to say. Can you do a roll call, please, Linda?
Yes. Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott. Aye. Senator Salzar.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes on a do pass amendment.
All right, we passed that little, House Bill 60 has passed the Senate Appropriations Committee. Thank you. And we're on to House Bill 134, Property Tax Deferral Program Amendments. And
Cooper and Rothfuss. Senators Cooper and Rothfuss.
Cooper and Rothfuss are the two senators,
A
but
questionable duo.
they sent their helper.
They did indeed. I also expected Director Hinson, but I think she probably understandably gave up. So Vice Chairman Anderson, I'm Martha Lawley, House District 27, and this is a bill that I actually brought back last session under 121, but it is an amendment to the current property tax deferral statute that already has existed for a number of years. And basically what this does is pull that program out from the counties and up to the Department of Revenue to run that program. And some reasons for that is that really only one county has stood it up, which is Teton County. So unless your constituents happen to be residents of Teton County, they don't have access to this. Partly because the statute specifically says each county has to create rules, promulgate rules, and stand up the program. And in cases of where I live, they have to bear the burden of the deferment as well. In these smaller counties, hardship counties, it's very difficult to bear that burden. So also, anecdotally, there are people that typically are not that interested in going to people they know and see at the grocery store, see at sporting events and ask for a deferment. And we feel like maybe someone would do it if it was run by the department. So we worked on this a couple different ways. There were some amendments made in House Revenue, but a couple things I'll point out is because this will be a little bit newer experience for Revenue, they're not asking for, for the Department of Revenue, they're not asking for any more FTEs, any more money. The money you see appropriated here all goes to the fund to do the deferment program. And it's all set up to where if a deferment is made, then the funds are used to then make whole the county, sort of backfill the counties. and the state would hold the tax lien. And then when those tax liens are satisfied, that money would go back into this fund, and it would sort of become a revolving fund. That's the way it's set up. Also, because it's going to require some rulemaking, the statute or the bill requires that the Department of Revenue report to Joint Revenue Committee by November what they've done, and if there's anything more they need in terms of statutorily, but what they've done in terms of rulemaking as well. So any question, I can go into more detail if you'd like, but.
Questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, it looks like there's a $200,000 appropriation to the department, and that's what we're here to vote on, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that all the money is $200,000 for the
Yes.
Revenue Department?
Yes, and that money is to use to make the counties whole on the deferments that are given by the department.
That doesn't sound like much deferral. And did you say something about why the
Well,
counties weren't using it?
I would call this targeted relief, and it's targeted at a certain group of people that we've heard a lot from our constituents, and it's people that tend to be older, whose homes are either paid off or nearly paid off, and they just want to live in their home until they die, and they really don't want to move, and we've heard many of them that feel like they're being threatened because of their inability to pay property taxes. So it's really targeted, and we don't know, Director Henson testified today, actually she did also in House Revenue, that we don't really know how much, but we've all felt this is enough for now, and we can come back and add to it as we need to, but it is brand new. The bill does require the counties as well as the department to advertise the option to people in our county. So, but we really don't know how many will take advantage of it. And because especially with the growth of the refund program and other things, we really don't know. So we've all felt that the 200,000 was sufficient to start the program.
And it's a deferral and
Yes.
until you sell the property, or what's it, when's the deferral?
Well, Vice Chairman Anderson, it's a great question. The deferral is an agreement to not pay taxes now, but to pay it later. And so the lien could be called under a couple of circumstances, but basically most commonly what's going to happen is when the person dies and the property changes hands, then that tax lien will be satisfied at that time of the transaction. So that's typically what would happen, I think, in this situation. But could be some other things that could trigger, because there will be a tax lien put on the property in exchange for the agreement to defer.
So what are we using the $200,000 for? If it's a deferral that they're going to pay later, then will they reimburse the state when they pay the tax, or what's the $200,000 used for?
The 200,000, Vice Chairman Anderson, is used to make the counties whole. So the Department of Revenue will determine deferral, whether they meet the qualifications for deferment, and if they offer the deferment, then they will use this 200,000 to reimburse the counties for the tax that was deferred, a kind of backfill, if you will. And that's what the money is used for. And then when it's collected, that money will come back to the state, and under this bill will be put back into this account, because we will set up a deferral account, and it'll become kind of a revolving account, hopefully self-sustaining, or at least somewhat self-sustaining partially.
I see, okay. Other questions? Other questions? You guys all understand this, huh?
Great questions.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? No other questions? Thank you, Representative Lawley. Anyone else like to speak on
Property taxes.
property taxes, House Bill 134, deferral? Deferral. Nope, nobody on the Zoom, nobody in the room. Public comment is closed, and it's to the committee on $200,000. Moved it.
Second.
Seconded. And any discussion, any changes, anything you'd like to do?
Just a comment, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
sure.
Just a comment. We have had this program in Teton County for many years, and frankly, no one takes advantage of it. And I've always asked people why, because you're right, it is seniors who would look at it, but the answer I got was always the same. It's like, especially people, and I'm pointing at myself now, of a certain age, have a connotation to a tax lien on your property, and people just don't like it. And it's just something, that even though really, older folks, it doesn't really affect them and their finances, where a younger person, you do fill out credit application, car loans, all that stuff, one of the first things, are you have a judgment against you, or is there any liens against you? And you check yes, and all of a sudden that puts you in a whole nother category. So for a lot of people that are in business and more in the active income time of their life, they would never do it. But it was more of a visceral reaction from seniors who said, who just remember about poor taxes and dust bowls and, property liens. And so that was the answer I always got. So maybe it's different now. Maybe people will feel differently about it, but, that was always the issue, but we'll look forward to giving it a try. It's always good.
Other comments? If not, that
I can keep talking.
Yeah, we could.
concludes the business of the Senate Appropriations
No,
Committee.
we got.
And we'll close the meeting off, but we can keep talking. Go ahead.
We could vote on this one.
Vote on something, yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna do House Bill 60, since you're,
Did we roll call?
No, we hadn't done it yet.
We need to roll call that. vote.
Let's roll call.
You have not voted on this.
okay,
Even if we did.
okay.
Yeah,
We
I don't
better,
think, they're not moving till we do.
Senator
What side
Anderson,
you're here?
yeah, aye.
Senator Giroux,
Aye.
Senator Nethercott,
Aye.
Senator Salzar,
No.
Chairman Anderson, House Bill 134 passes with 3 ayes.
All right, we passed that.
Can help us find our way back to the Senate.
We passed that, and we'll have Cooper take care of that one, and will you take care of House Bill 60? You're kind of an expert on it.
Oh, I'm not sort of getting slapped around about it, but maybe you'll find somebody. If I can't find anybody to do it, I'll do it. And
It's
I'll
from
work really hard.
it's from the joint ag, so maybe Sherry would do it. All right, thank you. We'll close it off then.